Joining me next is Raymond Martin, who is going to talk about how SIOs connect objects and provenance. Raymond.
Good morning, everybody. I think what I want to open with is, in 2019, when this conference got started in New York, I was sitting where you are. I was in the audience, and I was listening to people get up and talk about dreams and ideas. Artists talk about how art could live on chain and how royalties could be realized and how communities could be built. It's all a bunch of ideas. Josie, if you guys know Josie Bellini, the artist, she wasn't even selling digital assets yet. She was selling physical, paintings in the hallway. Renee had just flown in from ETH Denver, and they just created the POAP protocol, the night before, literally, when he got there. And then Will and Triken ended the entire conference by teaching us how to write our first smart contract. And that was 2019. It seems like only yesterday that we were dreaming about the kinds of things that we're hearing about being put into utility today. And it was there at that conference, as I was sitting there, my business partner, Andy Van Valer, who's here, and I had just filed a patent. We'd filed a system patent that codified every object in time and space and gave it its own unique identity and allowed it to be owned and traded. And it was fun to sit in the audience and be like, oh my God, that's like NFTs. We can use blockchain technology to power this. And the more people spoke, and the more that I started to understand what was happening, there was this deep sense that there could be this connected layer under all of it, that anyone can build in their silo and they could build on chain, but we needed a digital asset that could track and trace each one of those assets, regardless of the chain that it's on. And it was one of those, when you get those goosebump moments where everything aligns and you're like, oh my God, this is the thing we should do. So I went back to my team, and we took our patent, we took the social identity of objects patent and the SIO trademark, and we began building a system that is built on SIOs. SIOs are our own digital asset, that is our digital asset class, that can connect literally anything in the universe. We built it to scale to every object in the universe times 10, and it just goes infinitely from there. But what we had to do first, and this is really important, and I think I'd love to continue to have conversations around this here while I'm still in London, which is until we define standards and have a common language, the future that we're talking about right now isn't going to exist. It's going to be disparate, siloed things, and we're going to think that Web3 is being in the metaverse. So we need to get a group of people together, kind of our own Web3 consortium, but W3 already exists, so we kind of got to call it something else, to define these standards. The biggest problem that we had to solve initially was around trust. When you have tokens that are minted on Ethereum and then moved to Polygon, they're burned and recreated. And how do we know that it's the same asset that was moved from one to the other? Unless you do a bunch of research, look at Etherscan, Polyscan, you start putting everything together. So we had to solve that problem, because in order to have to build value in a trusted system, you can't lose data. So we've solved that. So we have, if you read our white paper, it's the Esaiyo Trace white paper, you'll get some pretty in-depth information on how we do that. But since we've now done that, we can now activate the connection and the collection of everything. So when you think about use cases for digital assets, when you think about the use cases for non-fungible tokens, not just the branded NFT, you think about all these archives, all this information that exists in the world that comes from trusted sources that are being destroyed. If you saw the fire in South Africa destroyed half of their artifacts. You look at the Library of Alexandria being burned down. You look at our history being retold by the victors. We're alive at a time where we can use these digital assets to be the storytellers and the history keepers going forward, and we can allow history to then catch up. And so when we look at creating value, the speaker before me was talking about value from NFTs, we really see it in three separate categories. One is legacy value. The fact that this is potentially a forever technology allows us to protect and connect our legacies. So you think about your own legacy, what you do, what's important to you, what's going to be important to your grandchildren, yourself, but then think about the legacy of the world. And then there's social value that's created from these non-fungible tokens that is able to be stored. And then there's the historical value on top of that. And I think what's really interesting to me about NFTs and about crypto in general is we have these values that we understand are there, but they're not realized or codified, that we now have a place to hold and understand and exchange that value. If you think about social value, the social value that we've mostly created in Web 2 is building other companies. It's building the value of Facebook. It's not building your own personal value. There's no transactional nature there. But with NFTs and non-fungible tokens, or SIOs, you're able to own what you create, right? So the owner, whatever you're creating in the media world, is now owned by you, transferable by you, and able to grow over time. So that's how we see it. So when you think about how an SIO can accept all the information that defines and differentiates an object and makes it unique in the universe, and how it can then be connected to others in storytelling, but also in creating value. That's what I see and what we've built and what we believe is the best utility of these digital assets that we call non-fungible tokens. So I just wanted to deliver that message to you guys today, that there is a system, SIOs work, and they're able to connect whatever project you're working on or whatever digital asset you have. The coolest things is, I can't mention the people we're working with right now, but they're very different, right? So like one is in music, and the other one is a country. So this country has their artifacts, and they have all their records and their archives, and we're basically taking all that data, creating SIOs out of each one, and then allowing historians to begin storytelling, right? So within our system, every single object has its own unique SIO. On the music side, every single object, every band, music, performance, and fan has their own SIO number. That's not the same as the artifacts. So over time, you can see a world where music and culture and art can be connected by the same exact digital asset. We don't need to onboard anything or anybody, and they can trade and license to and from each other. So that's the future that we're building, and that's, I believe, the future that we have to build, and it has to be non-fungible. That's it. Thank you.